everyone. Welcome to Retro Warriors episode 77.
Woo.
As always, I'm your host,
Yay.
Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard Chris Saturn.
Hello.
And special returning guest, Corey from Japan.
Hi, hello,
That's your full name now. You're now
Yeah,
Corey from Japan.
Corey from Japan. I like that.
I do want to say up front, there is a little bit of a delay, so if the conversation gets a little jumbled, that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatevs. It's going to happen. It's just coming all the way across the ocean
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
us.
We're on different continents.
Yeah, completely different land masses going on
different
here.
hemispheres.
I like printing out the
communicating.
show notes because then I can hold it and wave it around like a newscaster. This is nice.
And then at the end of the show, you can just like toss it up in the air.
I do want to start the show with our fun thing. We're doing a giveaway for our patrons starting this week. So we're giving away a copy of Metal Slug 2 on Steam.
Oh shit.
And I got the names here in this hat, and I'm going to shake them up. And Saturn, you're going to draw a name,
Okay.
and that person gets a copy of Metal Slug 2. Now, I have removed my wife from the drawing
That's good.
because she's
My wife.
sleeping with one of the people running
That's
the
true.
giveaway. That's not fair.
You removed Andrew as
and
well.
I removed
right?
Andrew as
Yeah,
well because
yeah,
he's
'cause he's
technically
doesn't
a
count.
part of the
He's
show.
not even people.
Anyway, if you'll have at and pull a name out of this here hat,
And
and we'll see who gets Metal Slug 2.
our
on
lucky
Steam.
winner is a picture of Justin's dick.
Ah, got you. There's no
Yay.
giveaway.
Justice Allison.
Ooh, oh, there you go. So, Justice Allison, if you want to check your Patreon, we're going to send you a link for your redeemable Steam code for a copy of Metal Slug 2.
You better save that so that you don't inevitably forget who it was.
I'm not going to... No, I know this person.
That's good.
I know this person. I know that name. I'm just going to throw it back in the hat now and totally forget it. No.
It's a good thing we didn't record any of this.
But I'll send that out tonight. So by the time the show's going up, you should have that in your inbox. Because I will have to do a little bit of editing for the uncut version because I have to edit Corey's track in.
Yeah.
So all that stuff and
Yay.
things and whatnot.
Yay.
Anyway,
I went to an actual food establishment in the United States tonight that had Dragon Quest signage
you went to Minchie's
all over it.
finally.
Yeah. Well, they started the promotion yesterday,
Right. And we talked about that either a show ago or 2 shows
Yeah.
ago.
and they have posters fucking everywhere.
Mhm.
Like at the POS, they've got little table flags. Even on their little freezer where they have their cakes,
Mm.
there's a little sticker on it that says "Get a custom Dragon Quest Builders cake."
And what
And a big ass poster as you're walking in.
what makes no sense to me is they have an upcoming Dragon Quest game coming
Yes.
out that they want to sell well because they put
Well,
a lot of effort into it.
Well, Nintendo has an upcoming Dragon Quest game coming out.
Oh, is that what the issue is? Because
Yes.
it makes no sense that they're not.
Nintendo translated and is publishing Dragon Quest 7 and 8.
So
for
Square Enix
3DS.
doesn't give a shit about Dragon
Nope.
Quest 8. So
Nope.
they're like, hey, this game that came out several months
Yep.
ago, go buy this. We're going to do a promotion
And
months after it
They've
came
already
out.
started pushing Dragon Quest Heroes 2 for PS4, which comes out in April, because they are publishing it, not Nintendo.
8 is going to be a really rare game. I'm just calling it.
Yeah.
It's basically at the end of the 3DS life cycle.
Yep.
And Square Enix is sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, so is Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo's put out a handful of videos on their YouTube. That's it. That's the marketing.
I don't even want to play it because I've played a bunch of 8 already when it came out on PS2, but now I know I'm going to buy it just because I know it's going to be a collector's item.
I will definitely replay it because I haven't fully replayed Dragon Quest 8 since probably 2006.
I'm gonna feel so guilty buying Dragon Quest 8 when I'm still only 35 hours into Dragon Quest 7. Like I'm gonna have to sell my copy of 7 to remove the guilt from my life. I don't think I can ever live this down. Of all my regrets in life, it's near the top. It's up there.
Yeah, I could just tell you what happens.
No, I don't want to.
Like
if I don't
finishing.
play it, it doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
I could just go watch the ending, but that's dumb. I have to spend 100 hours of my life playing a 15-year-old JRPG.
Yeah.
That's what I have to do.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's our only option, right, Corey? Right.
Yes. where is this magical restaurant in America that's advertising Dragon Quest?
It is a place called Minchie's Frozen Yogurt.
Yeah, it's a Froyo place.
And they have a promotion going on with Square Enix where you get DLC content for the game from going there. You also can get entered into a contest to win a PS4 and a copy of the game or slime plushies. And I need more
Ooh.
slime plushies.
Who doesn't need more slime plushies?
I only have 12.
Do you actually
This
have
place-
12? Like, have you counted? That's the number you know?
Yes.
And this place is called Menchie's?
Yes.
Minchie's Frozen Yogurt. That is correct.
Never heard of that before.
I
Maybe-
hadn't
oh, well.
either, but now that I have and I've been there, it's actually pretty quality. I'll give them some props for that. Their staff had no idea what the promotion was. Like I asked them about it. They're like, "What? What?" And I was like, "You have signs literally everywhere."
You know all
in
this
here."
stuff all over this room right now?
And she was like, "Oh, yeah, nobody's really asked." And then she goes and gets a manager, and the manager's like, "It'll be a couple minutes. I have to find out what's going on." And then she goes, and she comes out like 5 minutes later, having printed out a 12-page email. And she was like,
For you.
I think you just have to register it online or something. I don't know."
I don't know what this is or why there's ooze all over our store, but get out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm still just flabbergasted that they're even doing that promotion here. That's
Right.
the weirdest. I can understand doing it, but it's months after the game. When did the game
and
come
also,
out?
it came out the beginning of November or
What?
end of October.
What?
And since then, Square Enix released Final Fantasy 15, a game they absolutely need to succeed. And there's been like no cross promotion with that anywhere.
Yeah, but in Japan,
Oh,
everything's all
shit.
about Top Ramen. Top Ramen Final
Okay,
Fantasy
hey.
15.
Top noodle. Or,
Now
cup
I know
noodle.
why it sounds familiar. Menchie's is a Japanese yogurt
Oh,
place.
are they?
That's
that,
why it
that would
sounds
explain it.
Oh.
It did have
I
a
was like-
very Japanesey feel in there.
That's why it sounds so familiar, because I've actually been to the one in Japan before.
All right.
Okay, that's why it sounds so familiar.
It is a very cutesy kawaii place.
Now, I can understand a Froyo promotion because Froyo, kind of looks like a slime when you get
Yeah.
your little blob of Froyo and everything.
And
But
slimes have Kit Kat bars stuck in them too.
Oh,
totally.
shit.
Totally. Like I can
Okay.
see the visual metaphor they're
Yeah.
trying to create there.
Right.
But I feel like they didn't try to execute
Here's the
it in
thing.
any way.
The thing they're giving away is Gold Golem DLC, and they have Gold Golem and the Hero of Builders on all the marketing. Like slimes are super tiny in the picture.
Why would you not have slimes?
Like they have the plush slimes pictured because that's one of the things you could win. That's it.
Dear Minchies, please write into the show because you clearly have no idea what
Yeah,
you're doing.
We need to understand your reasoning.
Golly.
No shit.
Right?
That's the
There
weirdest.
we go. I went to the website. Dragon Quest Builder Sweepstakes.
Yep.
There you go.
That's a cute little mascot.
Yeah.
Huh. This isn't in any way a promotion for Menchie's on the show,
No, we're
but it can be if
Yeah.
you guys keep talking about Menchie's.
yeah.
and
If
frozen
they
yogurt.
want to throw us a couple dollars, we will talk way more about this promotion.
Totally.
later.
I've never eaten Minchies, but for the right price, it's the best Froyo I've ever had in my life.
You know what? At this point, you might as well just make up your own thing. Like this episode today is sponsored by Menchie's. If you go to any Menchie's in the Texas area and give them the promotion code Retro Warriors, you will receive 10% off on all orders. you
And a
have
free
there.
slime
I don't
plush.
see why not.
And a free slime plush, and they won't look at you like they don't know what the hell is happening. Did every employee in there just look bewildered?
There was only 2 employees, and when we walked in, none of them were visible, and because they were all in the
As
back.
it should be.
And then finally, one comes out, and she's like, "Oh yeah, help yourself, and we'll check you out when you're done."
Yeah.
And then I start asking about the thing, and she just gets that look of like
Oh shit! Oh
fear,
shit!
and so she calls the other person who I think was the manager. And as I'm leaving, I asked the second person, "Can I come back at the end of the month and take your signage? I want to get these Dragon Quest signs." She's
Right.
like, "No, I have to send them back to corporate." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I understand that." Then I get in my car and I'm like, when I came in, there were no employees visible. So at the end of the month, I'm just going to come in and take all their signage.
Every
you could. There's nothing to stop you.
Yeah,
every Froyo place I've ever been to, you go in there and there's either no employees that you can see,
yeah.
or there's like one sitting on a chair 8 feet away from the register, like playing on his phone.
Yeah.
Because the places are practically self-serve. Like
Yeah.
really, they could just install a security guard,
Right.
and it would be fine.
Yeah.
Except he wouldn't know to restock the Kit Kats after you went in there and ate them all. That'd be the only problem.
Yeah, he wouldn't know to restock everything when your cup of Froyo was actually just all mini Reese's Pieces.
You're just paying like 110% markup for them. I like to buy my candy by weight at the Froyo shop in a little cup.
Yeah.
That's how I like
Yep.
it delivered.
Better
to
that
me.
way.
Did you have anything else this week?
I brought my RetroPie to work
Mhm.
because New Year's was slow. And
How
then
many
immediately
people's
was not
minds
slow.
did you blow with that?
No one cared at all. Like one guy was like, "Does it play in 64?" And I was like, "Kinda." And I loaded up Smash Brothers, and he's like, "Frame rate's kind of shit." And that was about it. That was That was the interest anyone had.
I like that you took your NES
Oh,
Classic
man.
up there and you're like, it plays 30 mostly good NES games, and everyone's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And then you took your RetroPie and you're like, it plays everything ever,
yeah,
and nobody cares.
yeah.
Oh.
No one really like one guy like was willing to watch some F-Zero for a minute. He's like, yeah, it's cool. Anyway, I bet a computer could do that. It is a computer, yes.
Oh man.
But yeah, that was.
What did you think it was running on an abacus? Like, what did you think was fueling this?
There was two squirrels farting into each other.
That's how RetroPies work.
Yeah.
For the uninformed,
Right.
It's two squirrels. Well, I did want to mention a game that we had gotten a review code for, which I will say I haven't played enough of to have a final judgment, so I'll probably mention
I've
again.
played
next
about
week.
an hour now.
Oh, you've played more than I have.
Okay.
I got like 45 minutes in because, well, I mean, we got the game yesterday, and that game is Z Exemplar, and I'm gonna say the studio name wrong. Suminel Studios, I believe. Anyway, it's a Steam game.
Sure.
It is a ZX Spectrum
Themed faux retro game.
shmup.
Yeah.
And we got it from Suminel Studios, and I've been playing it because what struck me first is I was like, it's a shmup, and it looks kind of Gradius-y,
Yeah.
and it looks kind of ZX Spectrum-y, and I don't know anything about ZX.
Yeah,
Pardon me, the ZX
the ZX
Spectrum.
Spectrum.
I don't know anything about the ZX Spectrum.
Sorry, the Specky.
Yeah, because I live in America.
Yeah.
So I don't even think they came out here at all.
No, I don't believe they did.
Anyway, and I'm always trying to get interested in that stuff, like British.
We want to
microcomputers.
learn what the allure is.
Yeah, because everyone that I play, and I've also been playing some Rare Replay games that
Mhm.
were kind of making me interested in some British microcomputer games.
Yeah.
So that's what drew me
Playing
to
some
it.
Saberwolf.
Yeah, that
Some
one.
Night
That
Night.
one. Saberwolf was bad. What was the other one? It was like a tick.
Attic Attack or whatever.
Yeah, that one. I kept calling it a tick attack.
Yeah, I think that's what I keep hearing online too, so that might be correct.
But then it just makes me think it sounds like I'm saying a tic tac.
yeah.
But that's not.
Yeah.
That doesn't- Anyway, Z Exemplar. I've been playing it. I've been enjoying it at first.
One, it looks much better than actual Spectrum
Oh
games.
yeah, looks and controls much better.
Oh yeah, it's really smooth. I actually am really enjoying the gameplay. There's some times where it's a little cheap or frustrating as
Mhm.
far as
Mhm.
you can get snuck up on by some enemy fire.
And and I know the color palette is intentional, but it makes it difficult to see some of the
Right.
projectiles, which I think may also be intentional. What I really liked about it is at first I was like, all right, this is kind of your standard shmup, and I was playing, and then you start getting power-ups,
Yeah.
and I bought a couple, and I was like, all right, how many of these are there? And I scroll like
There's way
100
too
power-ups
many.
to the right. There's so many power-ups.
Also, the map is huge.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, now I'm into this shit.
Yeah.
Now this is fun.
Yeah, like I finished the first level and I was like, oh, is there like 9 levels or something? And then it was like completion 0.12 or some shit
the
like
game
that.
is huge.
Yeah, it is giant.
The levels themselves are relatively short, which I do enjoy.
Mhm.
I get shmups. I have a lot. I love shmups, but
Yeah.
they really wear on me. Like playing a shmup for long term,
Yeah.
it's like I'm sweating and my thumbs hurt. I
Yeah.
can't,
Well, the thing is, I started playing it right after because I had some leftover yens in my PSN account.
Mhm.
I believe that is the plural of yen.
Yeah.
As yens
It's-
or
that's
yennies.
incorrect.
Is it
No, you
yennies?
just say yen.
Oh,
No, it's just yen.
yennies.
I think it's Yinnies, Corey. I'm
Yennies.
sorry.
No, I live here. It's just yen.
It's yen notes.
Yes.
You can also say Poke Dollars,
No,
and they know what
yeah,
you're saying.
Poke Dollars.
Polka dollars.
Or you could go the Kingdom Hearts route and just say money, but spell it with a U instead of an O.
That's how you know
Yeah.
that it's money.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, so I had some leftover yen in my PSN account, and so I had bought Salamander or Life Force.
Yeah.
For PS4, and it's such an amazing port. And it includes the original Japanese Salamander arcade,
Mhm.
the American Life Force arcade, and the Japanese Life Force arcade,
Mhm.
which is Salamander but with Gradius's power up system.
Nice.
And so I had just finished playing that for like an
Mhm.
hour, and I fucking love Salamander. It's one of my favorite old arcade shmups.
Right.
I played that for like an hour, and then I played Z Exemplar
yeah.
right after, or Z Exemplar, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
It
Oh,
might
I'm
be.
sorry. Z Exemplar.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure it is. I believe they're a Scottish studio.
Yeah, then
if
it
I
is
remember
certainly
correctly.
Z
Yeah.
Exemplar.
Yes, they are.
And so
Which
So-
sounds way cooler than the dumb American way we're
Yeah,
saying it. So
yeah.
excuse us.
So I
Z
had just
Exemplar.
I just started playing it after playing Salamander, and so my hopes were pretty low because I was like, it's an independent shooter.
right.
It's and I'm playing it right after playing one of my favorite shooters.
Playing
so
one of the best
obviously-
shmups. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I was actually really impressed
Mm-hmm.
with it. I felt like it flows well. I also appreciate the short levels just
Mhm.
because you don't have to. If you die, you don't have to go through a ton of stuff
Right.
to get back to where you,
get
were.
right back in it.
Exactly.
And I'm really digging the massive amount of power ups because what's fun to me is different combinations of them. I really get into that kind of shit, like finding
Right.
the maximum like combination of power ups.
Yeah.
My only thing that gets me in, if you guys are listening, tell me how. I can't figure out how to pause the game once I'm in a level.
I don't know. Maybe
There's-
the enter button. I think.
I can't find it.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I can find my enter button, but I can't find my enter button, Saturn. Is that the problem? No, I can't figure out. And granted, the levels, I mean, they're like 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
So maybe there just isn't one. That would make sense.
Yeah.
But I can't find out how to pause the
I'm-
damn game.
I'm using my Xbox One controller. I
Mhm.
don't remember if I ever had to pause it.
Now, did that work natively? You just plugged it in? Okay. Because
Yeah.
I'm on a Mac, so controllers are already weird for me. So
Right.
I had to do manual key bindings on a PS3 controller.
yeah.
But Mac controllers are just weird. That's just Mac, so I'm not going
I'm-
to throw that on the game.
I'm on a Windows 10 PC, so my Xbone controller is Bluetooth to my computer.
Okay, yeah.
And so I just turned it on, and then I opened up Steam, and I launched the game, and immediately it recognized both the analog stick and the D-pad as movement,
Mhm.
and both A and B worked as fire buttons.
No, I just had to map mine to keys. But again,
Okay.
as someone who plays games on a Mac, I'm very used
Right.
to joystick incompatibilities. I don't think it's. I guess what I'm saying is I think the game is set up properly. It's just Macs and
Right.
controllers are goofy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do want to talk about Z Exemplar a little bit more, probably next week once I've had some more time with it. But
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly enjoying
that
it.
exemplar.
Oh, God damn it, Z Exemplar.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You get your little Z80 pilot in there.
Corey, before we launch into the topic, did you have anything you wanted to talk about on the show? Anything you've been doing lately? Games you've been playing? Anything?
Yeah, with the holiday season in full swing here in Japan, I've had a lot of time just like to dick around on my Mac and play a lot of old games.
Mhm.
So I, with the power of the Game Genie, beat Super Ghouls and Ghosts
Nice.
because
Excellent.
I couldn't beat it as a normal mortal.
Yeah, because you have human reflexes.
Yeah.
And with all this extra time on my hand, I actually got a chance to go into a couple arcades here in
Nice.
Tokyo.
I think you meant to say
And-
game centers, Corey.
I mean, to be fair, you can call them arcades or game centers because they use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah, but you want to sound
Um,
cool because you live in Japan. You got to call them game centers.
Okay, I went to a couple of game centers.
Oh, you're so cool.
How many
I
yenis
am
did
so
it
cool.
cost?
Huh?
How many yens? How many yens did you spend at the thing?
So I'm because you have to remember, most of these arcade games run on 100 yen coins, and a 100 yen coin is the equivalent of $1.
Right.
Right.
So I tend to be very frugal when I play games.
Sure.
So I usually end up ballparking around $10-15. So that's about
That's fair.
1,500 yen.
Yeah.
That's not bad for a night at
but-
an arcade.
Right.
It's not, because that's about the equivalent of like 2 to 3 hours if you play, really good games as opposed to like really bad games.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say they're bad, but like there's something you learn. There's a reason why like some games are arcade difficult, and because they want you
Right.
to spend as
They're
much
quarter
as
eaters.
possible. But I actually saw a man. There's one arcade in Japan, in Tokyo, in Akihabara,
Mm.
and there is one machine at this arcade that's never touched every time I've been there, and it's a Ghouls and Ghosts. I don't know, not Ghouls and Ghosts, the original
Ghosts and Goblins.
Because people don't want to lose
Ghosts
their
and
money.
Goblins.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: we're talking about Japan, a country that's well versed in playing some of the most difficult games
Right.
one-handed while looking at their phone and chain smoking. and and this is a game that like nobody touches. They're like, oh no, fuck that game.
Right.
Um,
Not as hard as dicks.
and what prompted me to play it was there's this guy, full business suit,
Mm.
smoking a cigarette on his phone, and he was playing this game, and I was like, oh, wow. And he beat the game in one sitting
Nice.
on one quarter.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, it's possible. You just have to like have no soul, apparently,
Right.
like this guy.
I like to imagine that it's because I was thinking about it earlier because I was I was watching a documentary on making sake that's on Netflix. I forget what it's called. I think it's just called like Making Sake or something like that. So look it up. It's a really enthralling, well shot documentary. But there's this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but there's this kind of this cultural thing in Japan where it's admirable to like dedicate yourself to a thing.
Right.
Like, this is my job, and I will dedicate my life to my job until my dying breath as a janitor or whatever your life path is, whatever you choose. And I like to think that it probably trickles down into video games.
Right.
So that guy's probably like, this is my game, and I will play only this game for my entire life, and I will dedicate myself to Ghosts and Goblins
until I can breathe the attack pattern of the red armor.
Yeah. So I mean, I just wonder about that.
I mean, it's most definitely true when it comes to the job level stuff. I mean, it's not really a hidden fact that oftentimes work comes before family,
right?
And your own life a lot of times in Japan. So that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily believe it's true for hobbies because once you become an adult and you have a job, your work comes ahead of everything else.
Except
so this
for Ghosts
could be
and
like
Goblins
that guy's
and cigarettes.
That could be his his only release.
Yeah, that could be his thing, I mean, that may just he may have just like when he started as an accountant 37 years ago, like played that one weekend, and now that's just what he does every weekend for the rest of his life. Maybe that's
I received Ghosts and Goblins as a gift for like my 6th or 7th birthday when I was a kid for NES. Of course, the NES port of the game is broken to begin with.
Right.
It's harder than the arcade version. Right. And after like 2 months of bashing my head into that game, that was when I developed all of my self-esteem problems and realized that I am a worthless human being who will amount to nothing.
Is that why if you look in your Ghosts and Goblins instruction manual, it just says "I'm scum" handwritten on every page?
The picture of Captain Commando on the front of the manual just shows him flipping you the bird and whipping his dick out.
Anyway, well, we will dig into the topic a little bit early because last week we dug into the topic late, and this is a big one. This is Corey. This is why we have you here.
Hey Corey, yay. I hear war never changes. Your thoughts?
Does war change?
No, it never changes.
Okay, it's a good call.
We are talking Metal Gear this week. We brought Corey on because he is the biggest Metal Gear expert that I know.
Yes, I am.
And Corey, we can break this down any way you want. If you want to just kind of like skim through the entire series and touch on each individual game, that's fine. If you want to pause and say, hey, let's talk about Ghost Babel for the entire rest of the show, that's fine too. I'm just giving you free reign. So I figured the way we do it is I would just kind of pitch you a topic, and we would just go from there for as deep and as long as we wanted.
We're going to spend the entire time talking about the Commodore 64 port of Metal Gear 1.
Yes.
Which I didn't know existed until about like a week ago, and now
it's awful.
Now I'm
Don't. Oh my God, it's so bad.
Well, I was telling Saturn last week, I was like, Corey's played every Metal Gear game. And of course, when people say that, you're like, all right, you played Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 now, whatever. And I was like, no, Corey's played every Metal Gear game. I went through the list. I was like, what about this one? He was like, yes, even that. Yeah, played that one.
Yeah.
Corey, you've played all of them.
Yeah.
The only one, I feel bad about saying this, but the only one I have not played is the arcade one. And that's only because by the time I came here and found out where one actually exists, it was already gone.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Well, I do want to talk about the series' beginnings on the MSX computer system. The first 2 Metal Gear games on MSX. Now, Corey, you've played through those, I'm assuming.
Yes, I have not played them on an MSX, but I have played them through, I guess, I don't know if this is an emulated version on the PS2.
Yeah.
But when I had a copy of Subsistence for my PS2, I was pleasantly surprised to learn both games were on the second disc.
Yeah, and they've been on every HD port of MGS3 as well. For all the new
which is very, very, very nice because I got it on my Vita and I was able to play Metal Gear 2 on my Vita.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what years did those drop on MSX. Do you remember, Sam?
1987.
87. So that was a little bit later. Now Konami was big on the MSX. That's also where the proto Castlevania Vampire Killer came from. That was their big
Yeah.
That was a
Now,
big system for a little while.
Didn't Castlevania on NES or on FDS rather come out before the MSX version?
I thought Vampire Killer predated all of them, but I'm not
I'll have to
honestly
go back
sure.
and look.
It was this. Everything I know about the MSX is one weekend I was like, "What is this thing?" And I emulated it for a couple days, and then I quit.
MSX the first it was a computer system really, but it was designed by Microsoft and Sony.
I did not know that.
Yes,
that's insane.
Yeah,
wow.
The MS and MSX stands for Microsoft.
Now, for people that have played early Metal Gear games, most people in America have played the NES ones first. You know, Metal Gear and Snake's Revenge. These are very different games.
These are the greatest.
Yes. Terrible games.
Can't even see it.
So I really don't want to dig too deep into the NES games. So Corey, maybe you can just tell us why it is worth tracking down a copy of Subsistence, either digital in an HD collection or a physical PS2 disc, to play these versions over the two NES games.
The two.
Well, this is actually going to sound kind of I don't know if it's blasphemous as a Metal Gear fan, but purely if you're going to play Metal Gear or Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, the reason why you're going to play them isn't necessarily for the gameplay. Maybe you're going to play them because you are a fan of the games and you really want to get like even the most minute little details or Easter eggs that Kojima throws at you in the later games. Because gameplay wise, I feel like the first two games for a lot of people, it's not going to be something they're going to enjoy.
Yeah, they have aged pretty.
Have they?
Pretty heavily.
I remember enjoying them a lot.
Yeah.
But it's maybe because I played Metal Gear on NES so much.
Possibly.
It's entirely possible because if you play like, I mean, for most people, I would assume if Metal Gear Solid wasn't their introduction to the Metal Gear franchise, it probably was Metal Gear on the NES.
Right.
And so if you played Metal Gear on the NES, you know how terrible of a game it is, and you know how kind of gimped it is once you go to the MSX games.
Yeah, the thing about the NES version that I always have to point out is the NES port of Metal Gear doesn't feature Metal Gear.
It does not.
Does it not?
They cut out Metal Gear from Metal Gear.
Nope.
But
that's awesome.
So downside, doesn't have Metal Gear in Metal Gear.
Right.
Upside, anytime I play it, I feel asleep.
Yes.
It is
wonderful translation by Ultra Games.
It is a well-remembered game. Just I think because of the terrible English and because there's really not anything.
Yeah.
There's very few games like it on NES.
Yeah.
Even though it's executed terribly.
We have to give Konami credit because they really. It's just such a winning port. The winning translation. I love the old Ultra Games label that Konami used to use back then. Because that was, again, their cheat to get around Nintendo's publication limits. Someone had apparently rumored that Konami was going to publish a more recent game under the Ultra label, just as a throwback. There is no evidence of that happening, and now that Konami has fallen into the giant shithole that they're in now, we'll never see it again. But I do still have plenty of nostalgia for the old Ultra label on like Turtles and Metal Gear.
I love the cover art that's just Kyle Reese from Terminator.
It is Kyle Reese.
I didn't even try to hide it.
Great. I mean, it's practically just the picture taken directly. Someone just traced it.
Yeah.
Because it had to have been what they did. Now, I want to mention Snake's Revenge specifically, which was the NES sequel, because to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kojima had nothing to do with Snake's Revenge.
No involvement. It was something that was done separately. But funny enough, I'm trying to remember. No, nothing. The only thing, like he said, was he acknowledged it once that it was just some crappy game. But that's about it.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. It's available on the Wii Virtual Console, though, in case you want to catch up on Snake's Revenge.
Yeah, just
don't.
I mean, honestly, you can still buy the cartridge for cheaper than Virtual Console, which is one of the few games you still can. Now, as far as I know, and if there's one I'm missing here, then tell me. It goes straight from NES to Metal Gear Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Well,
as far as the order in terms of release,
yeah, chronological releases.
Okay, so it was Metal Gear, and Metal Gear 2, which got released on the MSX2.
Right.
And then we have a period of time where Kojima made other games. That was actually a thing he
Snatcher
used to
and
do.
Police Knots.
Right.
He made, I think it was Snatcher and Police Knots, which
Mhm.
are two really awesome games. If you haven't played them, you should play them.
Now tell me this,
And then
before you move on, not to derail too much, but Snatcher and Police Knots, I have little patience for either of the games, and I've tried to play them multiple times. Of the two, which one should I endeavor to play? Just give me one of them.
Police Knots.
Really?
Out of the two, I really enjoy Police Knots a lot better.
Okay.
To me, it's just it's a lot more fun.
Okay, because there's Snatcher is obviously easy to play and emulate because it was on Sega CD.
Yeah.
There is just recently Junker HQ released
Saturn
English patch
translation.
of the Saturn version of the game, which I can burn and play for freezies.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in figuring out the obtuse black magic archaic way that they want me to patch my disc file and figure that out. So
I've still got my original Sega CD copy of Snatcher,
Mm.
and so I've played through that one. I've yet to play through Police Knots. I keep telling myself I will someday, especially now that it's in English.
Right.
But I have so many games on my list of I will play this someday at this
me
point.
too. Oh my god. Anyway, so it goes straight up to Metal Gear Solid after that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Metal Gear Solid, and I do. This is going to get us out of order, but I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid and Twin Snakes at the same time.
I love Twin
Oh,
Snakes.
yes.
Now I don't because it's hard to talk too much about Twin Snakes because it is just a remake. But I do want to have that in mind while we're talking about Metal Gear Solid. Now, Metal Gear Solid, from my perspective, growing up, that was the first Metal Gear game that really turned people's heads.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's pretty much everyone's introduction to the Metal Gear franchise.
mhm. So it came out and it was I remember how bizarre it was, a game of tactical espionage action. How
It was
strange is
a
that?
perfect storm at that time because it was during the PS1 era where everybody was suddenly looking for more mature games.
Right.
We'd had Resident Evil. We had, some games that were still games, but were intended for more mature audiences
Right.
instead of Night Trap, which was just a shitty softcore porn simulator.
Yeah.
It was,
Oh, yeah.
we were starting to see actual games designed with more in-depth thought processes and stories and adult themes. And so Metal Gear just happened to come back at that right time.
Mhm.
And it really, if Metal Gear Solid had come out 5 years earlier, I don't know that it would have gotten nearly as much attention. But
can
I
see
think
that.
because of the PlayStation's popularity and the older audience starting to get into games internationally,
Mhm.
I think that it really got the attention that it deserved because of that.
Mhm. What were you going to say, Corey?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think I totally agree with you, Saturn. I think had the game come out even if it's a launch title or even an early PS1 game,
Mm.
I think it probably wouldn't have gotten the same kind of traction.
Right.
And maybe people nowadays would say, "Oh, do you guys remember when they tried to redo Metal Gear
Right.
as a 3D game?"
Mhm.
And that would have been it. I don't know. I really do think it was kind of like a perfect storm. I remember I was 8 years old when this game came out, and
Saturn's
this is
shaking
when,
his
like-
old head at that. Saturn,
I
how
just
old were you when Metal
remember-
Gear Solid 1 came out? Like 38?
Yeah, I was. I just sent my last grandson off to the war.
We just got him back from Grenada. I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
Oh no. I don't know. I just remember I was 8 years old, and like Nintendo was no longer cool, and
Right.
everyone like who I knew. Let's see, 8 years old. What grade was I in? I
That's
just remember
second grade.
being like
Second grade.
Yeah.
I just remember being in second, third grade, and people like, very adamantly saying, Nintendo is dumb, Nintendo is gay, there's nothing Nintendo can give us. And games like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, Twisted Metal were kind of like cool, and then here comes this game out of nowhere
Right.
where you're like, the objective is not to kill people.
Yeah.
and you're getting storylines about nuclear weapons and DARPA, and really real world concepts and real world stuff. And it's like, this is so fucking cool.
Right, and I feel like, because I haven't played, again, a ton of the earlier games, the NES and the MSX ones. I feel like it's also when the storylines started to get very, now we would call it very Kojima-y, but at the time you're right, it was this DARPA and this serious real world nuclear like Holocaust, potential world-ending events, and secret organizations, but it was mixed with this element of just pure insanity.
Yeah, I mean, Psycho Mantis vibrating your controller and reading your memory card.
Revolver Ocelot, Liquid Snake, like all these characters.
I'll never forget like the moment that like I was really, really getting into the game and I was super, super into it. And I was really getting into the story and the characters, and like anytime that I'd find out somebody died, it was like really hitting me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the torture scene and Ocelot in depth tells you how to use the controller.
Yeah.
And that broke my immersion immediately. And I was like, I'm playing a fucking video game. All this happened in a game. What the hell has happened here?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Like I loved it, but it was still just like, I don't say that in a bad way that it broke my immersion.
Right.
It somehow brought a layer of realism to how ridiculous and embellished the story was.
Exactly. I mean, the way that the game breaks the fourth wall and the times that it does it is it could have come off as goofy and hokey and if they did it too much or not subtly enough. But the ways they do it, it's just enough to really grab you, because they do it at these moments when you're like really deep, like the Psycho Mantis fight. You're like, all right, I'm ready for this shit. And he's like, I see you like Harvest Moon. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
I was always a big Konami fan since the NES.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a shit ton of games already on my memory card. I had Vandal Hearts, Suikoden, and Castlevania. He called out all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is amazing at this moment.
Yeah, like they wait till these moments where you're mentally so into the game that like your house could be on fire and you wouldn't notice. And it's like I don't know. You're right. It's a really amazing feeling.
And did you play through Twin Snakes?
I've never played through it. No. I own it. Corey's all about it.
He calls out Nintendo first party games instead of Konami games.
He does.
So you get to hear if you played Mario Kart or Smash Brothers and stuff like that. And he will give you shit if you're using a Wavebird instead of a regular controller.
Really?
He's like, because he tells you to place the controller on the table so that he can vibrate it. And then he gets frustrated if you're using a Wavebird because it doesn't have a vibration.
How does it know?
I don't know. But
it just does.
Yeah,
it's Psycho Mantis. Who
great.
knows?
It's just greatness.
So Corey, tell us about Twin Snakes.
So to talk on the earlier point.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's just I think Saturn. You would mention that it could have come everything you're talking about, like the memory card thing,
all the
putting
fourth
the
wall
controller
stuff.
down, the torture scene. It could have come off as hokey and stupid and really broken the immersion in a bad way. And then you have Twin Snakes, this game for the GameCube, developed not by Konami.
Silicon Knights,
Silicon Knights, yeah.
Silicon Knights.
Coming off the high of Eternal Darkness, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The high of Eternal Darkness.
And if you ever listen to Dyack talk about how they got that job, that guy can spin a yarn.
He can suck his own dick like the best of them.
Because he has told that story in great detail about how he like snaked that job for Silicon Knights.
Yeah.
But anyway, Corey, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no! I'm just saying. If anything, I think in a lot of ways, Twin Snakes is a very, no pun intended, solid experience.
Oh, you did
it. But in a lot of ways, it's a game that like, it's like if I like it, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of like if George Lucas, had a chance to remake Star Wars. You see what happens. I feel like in a lot of ways, Twin Snakes is like if Kojima had the ability to remake the original Metal Gear Solid, this is what we get.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will always prefer the original. I love Twin Snakes. I think it's great, but as far as canon, I don't I would still go to MGS
Yeah.
one first.
I don't I've played very little of Twin Snakes, and all I know is what I hear in YouTube videos and things I see. From what I gather, they basically, because what's exciting about Snake is that yes, he's a very highly skilled and trained soldier, but unlike a lot of highly skilled and trained soldiers that you see, and unlike every other highly skilled and trained soldier in the franchise, he's not flashy.
Right.
He gets the job done and he's in and out, and it doesn't always look good when he does it, and it's not always pretty to look at.
Right.
But he gets the shit done, and he gets it. I mean, you can see in Metal Gear Solid 2, just his standing idle pose. He's got these little T-Rex arms. He looks goofy as hell. You know, he's not there to look cool. He's there to get the job done.
However, in Twin Snakes,
it's the
exact opposite.
He does like spinning air karate.
Well, they reused the game engine from MGS2. They had ported it to the GameCube and turned it into Twin Snakes, and so it has a lot of Raiden's acrobatics, which is, I presume, how he ended up like that.
That makes sense. But it is. I can see why fans would be upset, because it does break that part of the Snake character, because that's why Snake is so great.
You know, when Twin Snakes came out, my ex was watching me play it, and she got so pissed off that Mei Ling sounded different.
I was going to say,
because she has the super racist accent in MGS and in MGS1, and she sounds like a generic American person in MGS2. It's the same voice cast for MGS1 and Twin Snakes. Literally the same voice cast. She just stopped using the offensive accent.
Yeah,
that's
weird.
I think the only exception on that is Gray Fox was played by a different guy in the original game.
Right, yeah.
In this one, they have who was it? I think it's the guy that played Yakko from Animaniacs.
Wow,
Rob
really?
Paulson.
Yes, it is Rob Paulson.
Nice.
Which was a weird way for me to like break out of the game and be like, wait a minute, that's the guy from Animaniacs.
Now,
Who does some amazing voices in person.
Could you tell it, like, when you were playing it, you were like, that's Yakko, or like you just saw the name in the game and you're like, oh, you know, like, can you really tell?
It wasn't actually Yakko that made me do it. It was like, that's fucking Pinky from Animaniacs.
Yeah.
He's a great voice actor, but he has a very distinct voice.
Yeah.
And also his Gray Fox impression also sounds like the Mask voice he did for the TV show The Mask.
Based on the shitty Jim Carrey movie.
Hey, I love The Mask.
Why for me,
people don't like The Mask? Is that a thing?
Well, the cartoon show The Mask is shitty.
Hold on a minute. Put the show on hold. Pause everything.
Okay.
Saturn, you don't like The Mask?
I liked it when I was, like 7 when it came out.
That's a good ass movie.
Wait a minute, Saturn. You don't like The Mask?
Have you seen Cameron Diaz in it? Have you seen
She
her?
was stupid hot.
Oh my
movie.
god.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Corey, did you have anything else on Metal Gear Solid 1/Twin Snakes that you wanted to discuss?
I think the only, thing I would say is that Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation really started, in a lot of ways, a whole genre of video games.
Oh yeah, your Splinter Cells.
Right.
Splinter Cells, Siphon Filter for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd even argue that, in a lot of ways, if it hadn't been for a game like Metal Gear Solid, it might have taken a lot longer for games to have more in-depth stories that weren't, just RPG related.
Right. I'm not sure that we would have eventually ended up at places like Deus Ex without Metal Gear Solid in there. And there were so many Metal Gear ripoffs for a little while there. I mean, Siphon Filter, Fear Effect, Splinter Cell you mentioned, and just all of them all at once there for the rest of the PS1 and early PS2 generation.
So in some ways, you could say it's the Mortal Kombat of the PlayStation, in that it got 800 shitty ripoffs that didn't ever do it as good.
And Mortal Kombat in itself was a shitty ripoff of Street Fighter 2.
So let's move on to what I would call the Super Mario Brothers 3 of the Metal Gear Solid franchise.
Now hold on. Hold on. You're about to give that title to the game with the bait and switch Raiden?
What I mean by that, let me explain. Everyone's already deleted us from their feeds already. They were like, "Fuck these guys." What I mean by that is the level of hype and anticipation
Okay,
for
yeah.
this game.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Which was due in part to the fact that the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo disc came with Zone of the Enders.
Yeah.
So
It did.
they were sending out physical demos to everyone that bought a different game.
Yeah. And then right before it happened, or right before the game came out, 9/11 happened.
Mhm.
And so terrorism was suddenly a super hot button topic. And here's a game about
Oh
terrorism.
my God, Metal Gear Solid 2
Oh,
came
yeah.
out after 9/11?
Yeah, like
Yes, it came out in November
Yeah.
of that year.
You just flipped that in my head. I had it because I was 12 when
Yeah.
9/11 happened, but it's
Yeah.
this,
it came out
Wow.
right
2
at
months.
yeah.
for some reason in my head, Metal Gear Solid 2 predates 9/11 by
No.
a wide margin.
No,
Wow.
it was a couple months after.
Mm.
My favorite thing about MGS2, I just have to get it out of the way, is the fucking commercial.
I've not seen it.
There's this commercial. This dude is sitting in his cubicle and he's just thinking about how much he wants to get home and play MGS2.
Mhm.
And then you hear his boss walk into the room and say, "Johnson, where's Johnson?" And you hear like the music from Metal Gear where you're noticed and the guards are
Your
coming after
evasion
you.
Music, yeah.
And so he sneaks under his cube and he's like trying to hide from the boss. And like the boss is just going around like, "Where is Johnson? He was supposed to have that report on my desk." And just and like you constantly see him like sneaking behind water coolers and everything and
Yeah.
going under desks and through the ceiling. And then finally the boss gets into his office and then he turns around behind him and Johnson is hanging outside the window of his office. And as the boss as the boss sees him, the little exclamation point jumps over his head.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
Oh
awesome.
Excellent
yeah.
commercial.
Now I remember that.
I would also say that this was
Okay,
at the
okay.
peak of games, physical games media, like games
Mhm.
magazines and everything. They were
Oh, yeah, yeah.
exploding. Video game websites were popping up left and right.
Right.
So the coverage on this was insane.
Oh yeah.
So
Yes.
everyone was going completely bonkers for
Right.
it.
I mean, this was, I think, I could be wrong, but wasn't this a year after the PS2 came out in America?
Because PS2 was October of 2000. This was in November of 01.
Mhm.
Good
Uh,
lord.
it was actually-
2000.
It launched. Metal Gear Solid 2 launched in the US the same month that the Xbox and GameCube launched in the US. And of course, a year later, we got the Metal Gear Solid port or Metal Gear Solid 2 port to Xbox, and then I think a year after that is when it came out on PC.
Now I played a lot of Metal Gear Solid 2, but just the tanker.
Oh,
And I can't remember if the issue was that I had the demo or I just got bored. I remember like I'd play the tanker a little bit and I was like, this is fun, and I'd quit.
Yeah.
And I never played through the entire game
Yeah.
until the HD collection on Vita. That's how
okay.
long the gap was for me.
damn.
wow.
So playing through it
Wow.
like a decade and a half later,
Yeah.
I was like, this game is bullshit. But back then, for some reason in my head, you play it when you're a kid and then you just remember however much of the game you just assume is the entire game because you were a kid.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, what, that game where you played on the tanker? That was a pretty cool game. Why is everyone so fucking sour on it? Like, what's the problem?
When it came out, I was playing it, and my ex at the time, who later super got into the series, she had never heard of Metal Gear before, and she's watching. And she's like, "This is a stupid game. I mean, you don't even attack anybody. You're just trying to hide from everybody. I mean, this
Right.
is stupid. You're playing as emo pretty boy blonde kid,
Mm.
and then it got to the point where he loses his clothes and he's doing naked cartwheels,
Yeah,
and she was
naked
like,
albino ninja.
she was like, "I love this game now. This is my new favorite game. This game is ridiculous
Oh.
and hilarious, and there's naked cartwheels." And I'm like, sure. You know
God.
what? Whatever it takes for you.
Corey, I need you to defend the honor of Metal Gear Solid 2 to all of the detractors out there.
I think in a lot of ways, Metal Gear Solid 2 is a very contentious subject for a lot of people.
Mhm.
If you have to look at it from two perspectives. You have to look at it from a gamer perspective. You said, it's the Mario Brothers 3, in terms of like hype. I would
Mhm.
argue maybe from a high perspective it is, but I would argue in a lot of ways Metal Gear Solid 2 is the Super Mario Brothers 2 of the Metal Gear Solid
I could see that
franchise.
comparison as far as like gameplay and experience. Yeah.
Right.
Because you have a game that's presented, one way, and then it's a very completely different experience. And
Yeah.
a lot of people went into Metal Gear Solid 2 very, very excited to play Solid Snake again.
Right.
With next gen graphics, you could, when you're trying to hide from guards, they could find your footprints.
Mhm.
If you hide in lockers, and if there's a poster of a sexy girl, if you kiss the lips, it makes it like a little kiss sound.
Yeah.
If you take pictures of sexy women, Otacon will, chastise you.
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, the whole first Tankard chapter is such a perfect game experience.
Mm.
And then once you're finished with that, you get introduced to the plant chapter, and it's a completely different game. You have, word for word, the exact same codec messages
Yeah.
that, the Colonel is giving Raiden is the same exact thing that he gave Solid Snake in the first game. So you feel like you're getting a completely different game. And then you realize, that, oh, wait, this is a simulation. The Colonel's really an AI.
Yeah.
Is your girlfriend real? Is she really pregnant?
Yeah. When
Right.
when all the batshit crazy stuff started happening near the end of the game,
Mhm.
that's when I got sold on it. Like all the build up to it, I was like, I'm less and less caring about this game or this character or this world.
Mhm.
And then when like the Colonel's AI breaks down and he needs Scissors 61 and all that crazy shit happens, suddenly I'm 100% invested in this game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this has just become the most fascinating game I've ever played in my life.
And I think that's where, like, you get a lot of contention. A lot of people either really love it because, it's a very different kind of video game.
Mhm.
And other people, like, they hate it because, they went in expecting,
More
a
Snake.
fucking Metal Gear Solid game with Solid Snake. He's on the fucking box art.
Right? He's
for
the only
original
thing on
release,
the box art.
Yep.
And, instead, you get this game where you're playing, first you think you're just a pretty boy anime character, and then it
Right.
turns out, you're a child soldier, that, doesn't really have an identity. And
Yeah.
it turns out, wait, you're actually Raiden, and, like, you don't have blood, you have nanomachine blood. And,
And
it's
some more
such a...
Kojima shit happens.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think for me, what really broke me for the game, not in a bad way, but in a good way, is it's the final chapter sequence, and where your little codec radar is supposed to be. You just get a video of a girl
Yeah.
Yeah.
just lounging in the sun.
Yeah,
And
that's
you're like-
pretty great.
It's so fucking weird.
I'm kind of with Saturn on this that it's the game's kind of like a shit sandwich with two of the best pieces of bread
Right.
you've ever eaten. You're like, man,
Like-
this first part is great. Oh, this middle is kind of shit. Oh, this ending is amazing.
Yeah, like the most amazing artisan bread you've ever heard of. It's a shame that somebody put some like Walmart brand craft singles in the middle of it.
I will agree with that. I just think from a gamer perspective, that's definitely true. If you look at it from like the developmental history,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting like history where Kojima, this was supposed to be the last Metal Gear Solid game. There
Yeah.
was not supposed to be a 3, a 4,
Yeah.
a 5.
He's been saying he's going to quit like, I feel like every month since
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, is like, I'm quitting now.
Nah, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I'm quitting. Now I changed my mind.
Yeah.
But I think, if he had stuck to his guns, if like Konami didn't say we need more money,
Right.
we want to make more Metal Gear Solid games, put your name on them.
Yeah.
I feel like this would have been a more contentious game, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't, it would have a even bigger backlash, because
It's
if you
true.
hadn't been for 3, I feel like, you'd have a very, very sharply divided, community
Yeah.
for the fan base on that.
And that was also
But
during the era that Konami was just willing to throw as much money as they needed to at anything.
Yeah.
Because MGS2, giant budget. Silent Hill 2, giant budget. Suikoden 3, giant budget. It was just constantly,
Mhm.
and that was the same era that Yu-Gi-Oh started to pick up.
Mhm.
So they were making just gobs of money off of
Sounded
Yu-Gi-Oh.
like you're going to say that was the era that Yu-Gi-Oh farted. And I was like,
Yeah,
I don't remember
was-
that era.
was,
That's
it got a lot of controversy on the MTV. No, it just suddenly Konami is just making ludicrous sums of money,
Yeah.
and they're pouring it into development of these huge games
Mhm.
right before they decided that all their money should go to Metal Gear
Yeah.
and nothing else.
Now, we are getting short on time, so I do want to move into Metal Gear Solid 3 because I played the shit out of that when it came out. I played the online a ton. I played that game online obsessively. I played the included games, the MSX versions. I played the hell out of Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. And for my money, until 5 came out, it was far and away my favorite and to me the best Metal Gear game that had ever been made.
I can't.
Now,
get into it.
which version do you think is better, though? Do you think Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater by itself is the best, or do you think it took Metal Gear Solid 3, Subsistence to be the best version, or the best game until 5?
I think that just Snake Eater alone is a fantastic game. Subsistence just sealed the deal. It just made it the complete
I've
package
tried
for
to
me.
play MGS3 so many times,
And
and
you
I
can't.
like maybe an hour in, and I just completely lose interest.
I got so into the different costumes and
Yeah.
eating the animals and curing yourself of wounds, like the
See,
survival aspect of it.
Because for me, a lot of what got me into Metal Gear was the story. It's this weird, like quasi sci-fi, quasi ridiculous military fantasy Bond meets bullshit.
Right.
And
Bond meets bullshit. That
Yeah.
should be the tagline for every Metal Gear game.
and when MGS3 came out, suddenly it was in the past. It was Vietnam era.
Yeah.
And I just cannot give a shit about any media set in that era.
Really?
And I've tried so hard to play MGS3. I've tried it on the PS2. I tried it again on the PS3. I tried it on the 3DS. And I can't get past the first hour or so.
Man.
That's right. There was a 3DS port of Metal Gear Solid 3.
And it had some cool extra content in it too.
I even had a Circle Pad
way you're
Pro.
supposed to play it.
Yep. Corey, where do you land on the Metal Gear Solid 3 issue?
I think Metal Gear Solid 3 is a fantastic game. Like you, I feel like, before 5, it was possibly the best Metal Gear Solid game.
I will also say, before I forget, that for me, a lot of it was mechanically. The game plays very fluidly and very well mechanically, and they fixed all of my gameplay gripes from 2. So I think that's a lot of what sold me on it as well. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I think story-wise, it's the best story of all the Metal Gear Solid games. I think
it's the
gameplay-wise,
most understandable story for sure.
It is. Especially when you're essentially 5 games in, it's the easiest story to understand because it's not a sequel; it's really a prequel game. Which hey, anything that to get me to play a guy that looks like Snake is enough to sell me.
Right.
It is just such gameplay wise a great game. Graphics. I mean, I don't know if since Saturn hasn't gotten past the first hour of the game, but I mean, the Fury fight boss battle is possibly one of the best looking gameplay sequences on the PlayStation 2.
Now remind me which one that was, because I remember all the boss battles, but I don't remember all their names.
The Fury was the guy that liked fire, so he was the cosmonaut that had burned up, and he had the flamethrower and the jetpack. It's one of the best looking fights in the game, and it's possibly one of the best looking fights you'll probably see on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah. It did have some amazing boss battles. The sniper battle, the one where you're walking up the stream with the bodies, like just some really amazing boss sequences in that game.
Everything I've heard about all of the boss fights especially has always made me really, really want to go back and play it. Especially,
you should.
Because back when it first came out, my buddy was super, super into it, and he told me about the fight with the end and how you can just turn off your PlayStation. And come back.
That's
and
the
he dies.
pussy way to do it.
Right? Yeah, but I mean,
you can also kill him before then. You can snipe
but
him.
it is a way to end that fight.
Right,
and that's so creative from a programming standpoint that I really wanted to play it, and I just keep trying it, and I get to the point like right at the beginning there where there's the first little plot twist, the little betrayal plot twist at the very beginning, and then it throws you back in, and you have to go in and do the stuff, and I just completely lose interest. I just cannot. I can't push myself forward. I'm just like, I don't care at all about this world right now. I need something to push me forward there, and nothing is there to push me forward.
It is a lot less linear. The story is a lot less. It is like Corey and I were saying. It is much more direct and understandable, but it's less fun. Story wise,
Yeah.
I could definitely see it being a lot less fun because Metal Gear Solid 2, the whole time you're just sitting there going, "What the fuck is happening?"
Yeah.
And then you're like, "I must have missed something." And
Right.
you look it up online, and everyone else is like, "We don't know what the fuck is
Yeah.
happening." You're like, "Oh, it's everyone.
It's just Kojima shit.
It's not just me."
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 3 is certainly a simpler game story wise. So I could see how coming out of 2 and the bombastic ridiculousness that was 2.
Yeah.
I think all of that creativity was funneled into the boss fights.
Yeah.
So I can see where you're coming from.
Right.
For sure. I hate that we are coming up on the end of the show and we haven't had time to touch on any of the portable entries, which are some of my absolute favorites.
I did play a shit ton of GBC.
I don't think we'll delve into 4 or 5 because they're not quite within the scope of this show and because they're entire episodes in their own right. And I'm saddened that we didn't get to talk about 3 more because again, it is absolutely my favorite after 5 now.
I'm sad that we didn't get to dive into 5 because that's the only one that has Kiefer Sutherland, and of course we've had Kiefer Sutherland here the whole time waiting to talk, and I'm afraid we just weren't able to get to it.
Sorry
about that, Kiefer.
It costs so much money. Oh, hold on, here he is. Yeah. Okay, that was it. Kiefer Sutherland, everybody. $7 million.
I'd only ask this: what do you think is the best way to play these games for people who haven't experienced Metal Gear before?
HD
because
collection.
you have the HD collection, you have the Legacy collection,
Right.
But you can also the games for the most part. If you have the systems, they are pretty affordable.
Yeah, they're pretty
buy.
commonly available.
Metal Gear Solid 2 was famous for being the cheapest PS2 game for years.
It was so overprinted. Like even after Substance came out, you couldn't not find first print.
Yeah, it was
everywhere.
like I got it for like $1 like 5 years ago.
I would say that the Legacy Collection is probably the best way to go for people who just have newer systems.
I don't know the Legacy Collection. You guys have to catch me up.
It's on PS3. It has the HD collection in it. It also has MGS4, and it has PSN codes for MGS1 and for MGS VR missions.
Oh wow!
And the whole set cost, it was either 30 or 40 at retail.
Yeah, I'd then absolutely go that way.
It's fairly inexpensive.
Yeah.
So in again, Metal Gear Solid 3, the version in the HD collection is subsistence, so you still also get the MSX versions of the game.
And the MGS2 on there is the Substance port. So it is the enhanced version.
What did Substance?
And you do get the skateboarding levels on that one. So
I've never played Substance. What is it?
It was the enhanced version made for Xbox. It was later re-released on PS2 and it's on PC. There's some little minor tweaks to the gameplay that just kind of fix minor bugs, and for some reason they threw in a skateboarding minigame.
Oh my god! I love skateboarding games.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to play it.
It was also kind of a cross promotion because Evolution Skateboard was a Konami game, and so they're like, why not?
Yeah, they just used the game engine. They're like, fuck it, throw it in there.
Awesome. I think I may own it. I own the collection that's the PS2 releases.
Yeah, if you've got the
it's the
white
box
one. I think
it's
that one had
Substance.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm sure it's Subsistence on 3, so I can't imagine it's not Substance. I need to go. I didn't know.
I'm fairly certain it is. If not, you've got the HD collection on your Vita, and that's got Substance.
Oh yeah, that is Substance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh. Anyway,
so.
Corey, we have to have you back on to do an episode just on the portable entries in the Metal Gear franchise because honestly, I've played hours-wise more of those than I have any of the mainline games.
Now, like Acid? Or,
I was I'm still like, there's like, whatever's like pleasure center in your brain, cards like trigger that in me. So card games are like, they're like crack to me.
I have not played one of the PSP games.
Oh my gosh.
I just,
wow.
Whenever I see a game tell me that I need to interact with cards as part of my video game, I just shut down. I'm like, I no longer care about this.
To this day,
when
it's hard for me to not buy packs of cards.
Or PSO Episode 3 came out, and it was just a card game on a disc for my GameCube, I raised a middle finger so high at Sega that it hasn't come down yet.
I love card games. I loved Acid. I loved Portable Ops. I really liked Portable Ops a lot. I
Yeah, it's
played.
alright.
I played. What's the other one that
Peace
was
Walker.
Peace Walker, which is basically
Peace Walker.
Metal Gear Solid 5 Alpha Edition.
Right.
You know, which
Yes.
that's why I was so excited about 5 because I loved Peace Walker as
Mm.
well. So. Anyway, we do need to absolutely do more Metal Gear. Unfortunately, we were only able to get through MGS 1 through 3 this time, but there will be more in the future. Corey, as always, thank you for calling in from Japan.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Tell Japan we said hi.
Yeah, tell everyone there that we said hi and thanks for the video games and
Yeah.
the hentai.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
And tell them to send more Dragon Quest.
And send more
It's
Dragon
important.
No promises, but okay.
If
All
you
right.
could just attach like a really big boat motor to the left side of Japan and just kind of push it our way a little bit, we would be appreciative.
Yeah. yeah. Don't collide it with Hawaii, though. I understand there's still some bad blood
Yeah,
about
watch out for
Japan just
Hawaii.
showing up in
Watch
Hawaii.
out for Rye on the way. Anyway, God, we had a, all right. As always, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Retro Warriors. We would love for you to come support the show. You get to download Classic Corner, a bunch of other cool stuff that we have, and maybe win some free games for the next
Yeah.
few weeks.
Yeah.
You can also go to our website, retrowarriors.net, and get in touch with us on Facebook and now on Twitter. We're on Twitter now.
Oh, shit.
We're tweeting. We're Twitterers
We just have to someday live up to Wendy's Twitter.
one day.
Yeah.
But we responded to Wendy's a few times actually.
Have we?
So, yeah. Pablo is also running some of the social media. So in addition to doing all of our editing, he is also helping out with social media and Twitter and such. And I'm on there as well. So definitely hit us up. It's at retro_warriors because we are so retro that we still have an underscore in our username.
Mm.
Anyway, we'll be back
Beautiful.
next week with some stuff and some things. I didn't tell anybody this, and I'm announcing it right now. I think I want to do Sega CD next week. That'd be fun.
We can bring a TV in here and hook up my Sega CD.
I don't actually want to play Sega CD
Oh.
because I know what games are on them,
Fuck
so
off
you
then.
can't trick me. But anyway, we'll be back next week with some stuff and some things. And as always, let us cling together.